Hmm. Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I should have said good mid-morning because I can say that given that Michael Haynes is based in Sydney, Australia. So welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks, Bee. Really looking forward to our discussion today.
Me too, me too. You might be based in Sydney, but you are certainly a global trotter, a global operator in terms of your business, which is you're a B2B growth advisor and you're the founder of Listen, Innovate, Grow,
Yeah.
where you work with accounting firms, CFO advisory firms, and B2B tech companies, and essentially is to create a holistic go-to-market strategies that are cross-functional, essentially. I think I've got all that right, but I'm sure you'll probably
No, you got that. That is exactly accurate. I work with those across those particular verticals. I'm brought in typically by the CEOs to work with those teams to create that holistic go to market strategy roadmap, and that's to drive new market entry, client acquisition, client retention and expansion, and overall business growth. B. Some of the questions that lead CEOs to come to me and we have discussions, typical questions will be like a client I'm meeting this afternoon. Michael, I'm taking my new solution into the US. What is the market strategy to get into the United States? Or I have a meeting tomorrow morning with someone in Detroit who's in the ERP sector. Michael, our average client spend is 25,000 per month. We want to get it to 40,000 per month. What do we need to be offering in terms of greater solutions, programs, offering to drive that increase in average client spend? Um, Other questions could be how do we develop compelling products, services, solution, and bundles? What's that composition that we can use to offer our current clients, get our current clients to spend more? Or B, it could be like a client I had last year. The CEO was very disgruntled with his VP of sales, for which the language he used, I will not repeat on this podcast, but he's like, Michael, I need a real go to market strategy that is going to drive the growth that we need and really be able to go into the US and UK markets. Can you help us with that? So those are some examples of the kinds of questions or the mindset that the leaders of these SMB firms are having when they come to me and we have that initial discussion.
Yeah, super interesting. And when you booked in for the pod and I asked what's one unique insight or lived experience in life, leadership, and or business, you came back with how to understand and engage with buyers of B2B professional services, driving business growth based on how buyers of B2B services actually buy. And everything you've just been talking about, and even like when CEOs, etc., are coming to you, you said to me even just pre-show then the market has shifted, has changed, and a lot, and we're very much in a very short-term tactically driven world at the moment because everything is so reactive. There's so much unknown,
Yeah.
but yet the best performing and the best growth you get is when you look at and create a holistic go-to-market strategy. And I love that because I'm all about that as well. And we did catch up the other week as well, and we were talking about it. I call it the interconnected ecosystem because so often I see, the various different departments or of a business, whether it's an SME or a larger size business. And like you say, when they come to you going, why isn't this email or why isn't this marketing working? It's like, hang on, let's look at the total picture here. Let's look at the total ecosystem. Tell us a little bit about that and the response to my question, and is this a new thing? Has it just recently changed or has it been around for a while? Like, what do you think's
Okay.
contributed to the change? Yeah.
Oh, you opened up so many fantastic questions, B. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. All right. So how best to start? Okay, if we go back to 2020, 2021, if you were, and I follow a lot of the research. So a lot of the research, there are a few organizations out there, Forrester, Gartner, Foundry, the Hinge Research Institute, that do a lot of studies around our world of B2B professional services. So how do the folks who are buying advisory services, be it legal, construction, consulting, technology, etc., how do people buy our services and solutions? Back in 2020, 21, early pre-COVID, the question underpinning many decision makers' minds was, how do I solve X? So they were doing a lot of going on to the likes of Google to say, how do I solve X? Be it develop a new product, or how do I go into a new market, or how do I refine my service experience and capabilities. The question now has changed, and very much how decision makers change. It's gone from how do I solve to whom can help me solve. So yes, they are doing a lot of independent research, and they may be researching white papers, reports, etc. But now very much how buyers, particularly of advisory services that we operate in, the leaders are now tapping into who can help me solve. So they're tapping into the ecosystems and networks of joining groups, masterminds, communities, talking to industry experts, talking to their peers, going to events and engaging in a lot of dialogue. So they are definitely doing some research, but they're very much tapping into the ecosystems, the groups, associations, subject matter experts, and then within those groups and associations, what do they have in terms of their white papers, research, etc. Whom can they talk to? So it's very much gone to around the whom. So the key to success now is not just about putting out content out there, throwing it up on SEO. It's really understanding for your particular industry, what are those groups, ecosystems, and people where your clients and prospects are going to for advice, insights, and recommendations, what I call AIR. Where are they going to? And we need to be tapping into, working with, and aligning with those groups, people, communities, networks, where your clients and prospects are going to for information. This is something that has been studied quite a bit. The Hinge Research Institute, and there's a few other experts, particularly coming out of the US, that have been heavily studying the B2B space. I believe the term for this now is called near-bound, because it's all about people tapping into ecosystems and networks to really understand their key issues and getting those solutions, insights, and recommendations. So that is the key to success for your go-to-market strategy. Is you really need to really understand your decision makers, your buyers, to know who are they, what are their priorities be, and how do they buy. So what are those groups, ecosystems, networks, people, events, where are they going to gain what I call AIR advice, insights, and recommendation? Because that's the key to success, to be involved with, in front of, and aligned with those trusted people, sources, and networks.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so true, isn't it? Do you think that, it's obviously, since COVID also, and the fact that, people are wanting to, and also AI, like the revolution of AI this year in particular, that we are getting back to more of this. I love the term near bound, and I've not heard it before.
Yes, there's two people. I can give you the name. There's a great book called Nearbound and the Rise of the Who Economy. That book, the two authors were one of the two pioneers that started really examining what is going on in the B2B space. So it's happening across B2B, but it's even more pervasive, though, in the world of B2B professional services. Those of us that are providing those kinds of advisory services, more complex solutions. And my hypothesis is that this is being driven by a number of factors. I think one, for our clients, their end clients, our clients are doing more sophisticated things. They're trying to, because it's so competitive, they're trying to come up with new innovative business models. They're undertaking big new initiatives of coming up with new offerings, new business models, new collaborations. Their end clients are also demanding more things. So hence, there is a need for more in-depth expertise. There's the need for more advice, insights on how to do things that are more new, innovative, and more complex. So I think that is a big driving force. I also think during the age of COVID, there was a lot of what I call content vomit, show up and throw up. Everyone was an expert, and everyone was saying you need to do things, this way, that way. You put a topic in on Google, and you probably can get 25 different ways on, what is the way to acquire clients? What is the way to increase customer spend? And I think there's an overwhelm. And so the buyers of advisory services are really looking for trusted, reliable sources that can help them sift through, navigate, and make sense and say, for my business, for what I'm looking to do, what are the relevant insights and approaches, strategies, and best practices relevant for me. They're very much seeking that kind of advice to help guide them through, navigate all of the noise, all of the complexity, and they want it from trusted sources. So hence there is a bit of going back to, but let's start tapping into people who can help me solve,
Yeah,
who can
connection.
help me figure it out. And this is not just something that's anecdotal. There's been a couple research reports that have come out recently by the likes of Foundry and a few others that have shown that prospective clients in professional services are working more with their solution advisors, potential advisors, even around the business case. So prior to making the investment, they're actually working with that potential vendor to develop what is the business case to adopt that new technology solution, for example. More people across organizations now are becoming involved in purchase decisions. If we look at technology, it's not just the IT decision makers, but you're getting folks across the organization. Products, learning and support, customer service, other elements are being involved in both pre-sale and both post-sale as
Yeah.
well. So there are more and more people becoming involved to help filter, navigate, validate what's going on. And then with AI, I think AI has only exacerbated and further indicate the need for people to be able to rely on those trusted groups, people, communities, networks, experts to validate and guide, okay, what is it that I really need to achieve my objectives?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like the fact you're calling out this white noise and the vomit and the whatever the term you used around the you said something about vomit and
I called it content vomit because in around 2021, 22, everyone was just pumping out lots of content, putting it on the website, putting it on SEO, and the studies have shown now that's no longer sufficient. That's not where, and again, I'm talking in the context of our world of B2B professional services. There is more and more, and it's going up each and every year, of people tapping into the ecosystems, networks, communities. They're really going to those to get the level of advice.
yeah, because it's just over the content vomit. Like I actually went on LinkedIn last night and I'm not canning it in any way, shape, or form because it's, it's a platform, it's a platform we need. But I went on it last night and I came off and I felt like yeah, I felt like vomiting because I just saw so much just like it was just content that I was just like, what is going on? Like it was
It's
like I was
content. So be a couple things about LinkedIn. So it's content. There have been so McKinsey did a study maybe 18 months ago about what it is across, particularly around tech, what it is that buyers are looking for. And they're not looking just for expertise, they're looking for depth of expertise. And again,
yeah.
it's going back to some of those factors I talked about, businesses trying to undertake more innovative, more complex strategies, and clients wanting more. And so, the quality of content on LinkedIn, it's not that great. But LinkedIn is where it fits in. So the Hinge Research Institute, back in 2021, if you asked where do business decision makers in B2B go for advice insights, LinkedIn was ranked way up there. The latest studies now, it has dropped off a cliff because with LinkedIn, despite in addition to all the algorithms changing and stuff, the quality of content is not that great. There's a lot of, show up and throw up. So I connect with you now at 10:21, and then by 10:23, I'm giving you the pitch for whatever my product
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm
service is.
talking about.
So a lot of decision makers now, I can name 5 CEOs that I know fairly well off the top of my head, and I mention LinkedIn to them. Either A, they're never on it, or they will have some uh, words to use to describe it. And I've noticed increasingly ad hoc that a number of senior folk, if you look and you see their activity on LinkedIn, no activity in the past 60, 90 days. I'm seeing that something anecdote. I haven't done an actual study, but I've just noticed generally that is often a common thing with very senior decision makers. But the research has shown that LinkedIn, in terms of where people go for advice, insights, and recommendations when they're doing their research, it is dropped off from where it was 2021 to where it is now because it's now about going to other sources, going into your groups, your experts, your communities, where you can, it's tapping into the who.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like even your business name, like listen, innovate, grow. There is something so insightful even around that, right? And everything we're talking about, because when you're called up by a CEO and they want you to come in and have a look at their business, there's a real need for active listening. And I'd love your thoughts on this, right?
Okay. So,
In terms of going and just talking at somebody, it's like having the ability to actively listen to what they want to tell you.
sure. So, actually, the reason I call Listen, Innovate, Grow is the name of my business because those are the three core activities that you need to do in in a B2B buyer centric manner to drive growth. And so, Listen, Innovate, Grow is actually one of my frameworks that I use, one of my two frameworks that I use when working with clients. So, listening B is all about getting that depth of understanding on three levels. It's about understanding the business. So it's about understanding that client organization, understanding, their goals, their objectives, understanding who the leaders are, who are the decision makers. Then it's about listening at the market level. So having a really strong in-depth understanding of those industries and geographic markets, both those you currently serve and those you seek to serve. You have to have that depth of understanding around those industries and markets. So that includes understanding who your competitors are. And so doing that industry market analysis and gaining an understanding of what's going on in your industries and markets. And then the third level of listening B is listening. People often call it to the customer, but being in professional services, we're after clients. It's understanding the client, but we need to understand the decision makers. Who makes the decision? What are their priorities? And how do they buy? And it's really that third level of listening around listening at that client level. That's particularly where most companies I've worked with, and I've worked with everything from SMBs to large corporates. It's at that level where things are often missing, just assumed. That's where there is the big gap because
Yeah.
it's at that client, it's at that decision buyer level where the buying behavior dynamics have shifted, where the fundamental questions gone from how do I solve to whom I can solve. And so that's where the buying behaviors, the decision making processes have and thinking process has really changed. But there's often very little to no interaction at that buyer level. So it's about really having that depth of understanding. So when you've done your listening, which is really having that insights from an internal company level, but from an industry market level and a customer level, that gives you great clarity as to where to focus. And then innovation, I'm talking about business innovation. So what are those? It might be minor or significant new additions, modifications, enhancements you're going to make across your business. And business innovation can be done across many ways. It can be product, service, it can be
100%.
organizational, it can be marketing, the whole works. And those are the levers. So you know where to focus. Then you know what are the relevant levers based on your feedback on what's going on in the market, what's going on in those industries you're going after, what's going on with what your buyers are needing and wanting. Then you will determine where do I need to make shifts, modifications, improvements, and then you can have your growth strategies on how you're going to grow through new products, new services, existing clients, new clients, combinations thereof.
Interesting. You work globally, right? And you said you focus, specifically on Sydney, Canada, USA, and Singapore.
Mhm.
Everything we're talking about, are you seeing similar trends across the board, or are you seeing like in
I'm pretty similar. There's a pretty similar trends in terms of the buying dynamics within those industry verticals. I just wrote an article week before last. Founder did a study comparing across the different markets, and so the general trend of more people being involved in the decision making, more cross-functional people being involved. The impact of people tapping into ecosystems, networks, and groups to be gaining that advice, insights, and recommendations. Those trends are all happening. There's some slight variations as to the average number of decision makers in, let's say, Europe versus North America. But overall, the trends are pretty much the same in terms of how we need to be thinking as leaders of B2B professional service firms.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'd love your thoughts on this also. I mean, I'm asking you a lot of questions, but
Oh,
my
it's all
brain's
good.
going, but
Love it.
no, I've had a lot of different conversations with a lot of different leaders, people like yourself doing amazing things. And, it's been really interesting just talking about, what is I guess what constitutes a successful leader in this new world order we're in. That's one point, and I'd love your thoughts on that. But also, then the other part of this is, the state of the world is very unpredictable. You've used that a few times now. It's uncertain, from a economical perspective, political, you name it. And so, some people are saying, oh, it's like doom and gloom for how the next however long from a, economic standpoint, and it's kind of shaky grounds. Others are saying this is a perfect time to be like really, like you talk about innovating and growing. And, like for me, I think about the holistic I come back to that holistic ecosystem as well. There's never been a better time than to be, looking and ensuring that the ecosystem is holistic, and how you play in that, whether that's your business or you play a role. What are your thoughts on both of that? Like, do you like,
Okay.
and they're
Um,
big questions, right? Like especially the business one, but I think for me,
okay. Well, let's break it up. You're asking what's a successful leader.
yeah,
Leadership is not my expertise, but I think a good leader is one that I do think they do have to have a bit of blue sky thinking ahead. What are the opportunities? They may recognize, so they need to be able to ask the right questions of themselves and their organization, and and have a view as to where they want to take the organization, understanding where are the right opportunities. And if they don't have the answers, then they need to be tapping into their teams
mm,
internally, potentially getting external help to help identify what are the right opportunities given the organization they have that they're looking to build and where they're looking to go. So they have to be open to learn, opening to trying new ideas, being open to making the effort to investigate to find out where the opportunities are. Because if you do that upfront legwork, either internally and or by engaging such as subject matter experts as myself to help you identify what are the right opportunities for you, then that can open up and pave the way, which kind of relates to your question about, because with the uncertainty, we cannot sit forever and just sit and do nothing. You can do that, but I don't know about you. I know I have bills to pay. I have a life to live, and I'm sure most people do. Sitting and waiting till the next administration or the next economic cycle, I think that's just I just think that's ridiculous. Again, I think it's about having the right mindset, and then identifying what are the right opportunities, and
yeah,
then look how you move forward. But it does require you to do some bit of investigation and legwork as to what does that mean as right opportunities. Because for some organizations, it could be about just doubling down with their existing client base because they are only really cracking that much of what is the potential there. Because I do have one firm that I've been working with where they only offer this much, but their clients are looking for so much more, much of which they could operate. So their whole growth strategy is really around doubling down within some specific segments within their client base. And let's start developing some more new and innovative offerings, which they have the capability right there. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're talking M&A, going into new markets, taking out massive financing, etc. It's all about doing that investigation, starting with yourself, self-awareness about you as a leader, the organization, and then doing some opportunity investigation and assessment, and then determining what you want to do. And it may be internal, it may be external, maybe a combination of both, but it's not necessarily all about doing massive big things. I see with many SMEs, there's opportunities right there with some of their best clients who are looking more from them. And because they haven't taken the time to listen and have discussions or have someone like myself do the listening to understand what their clients need, the opportunities for growth, the fruit is with this one particular client, it's all right there. It's like we don't have to move anywhere, you don't have to do anything, and you've got a lot of capabilities of team members that want to do more things, that we can start doing some
yeah.
cool things like some more workshops and new offerings. And it's going to require minimal investment. It's going to require a bit of effort, but everything is right there. So it's really about, yeah, that introspection, but also that opportunity investigation, and then determining what's the way forward.
Yeah, I think about it as inside out. It's that inside out approach, right? That
Absolutely.
introspection, then the outwards.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're going to see more? more B2Bs, like, I was reading a stat the other day about entrepreneurialism and, especially the younger generations and things like that. And like, it's almost like a no-brainer for them in terms of just, the entrepreneur, journey is what they're kind of focusing a lot on. I can't remember specifically the stats, but it was just a really interesting read. Do you think we're going to see more advisory? Do you think we're going to see more B2Bs?
Okay, great question. So across the pond in the US, they're a little bit ahead of us. The world of fractionals, so fractional
Yeah,
experts are people that work as a fractional go-to-market, fractional CTO, that is really booming and starting to take off. Hasn't really caught on here, but they are a couple steps ahead. So there are a lot of people, young and old,
yeah,
that are tapping into that as a means to get into entrepreneurship. I think we will see more entrepreneurship, but as you get more saturated, it is going to require for you to succeed. You're going to have to level up. You're going to have to step up. You're going to have to differentiate, which means you may need to invest more in terms of your branding. You may need to start doing more speaking. You may need to start thinking out of the box. Part of the reason why I work internationally is twofold. I do love the diversity of working internationally, but it gives me also more options. It is also good from a brand
yeah,
perspective because
100%.
people make the assumption, and I'm going to call it out, especially here in Australia. I love living here in Australia, but by virtue of the fact that I do work overseas, I have contacts overseas, there's an automatic assumption. Okay, well, Michael, you must be good. Oh, Michael, you have clients in New York? Yes. Really? Yes. There is an automatic
Yeah,
assumption,
I
and
love it.
so I do think as areas become more saturated, to stand out, to do more, you're going to have to level up your game in terms of what you do, how you do, where you do it, which is going to require more investment. And ultimately, that will involve more of this. And so that will weed people out. So I think there will be more entrepreneurs, more new forms of work, and that's starting to happen in other markets. But there will always be, I think, a segment of society who will want to go to the secure job,
Status quo. Yeah.
that status quo, use job security. I don't think job security necessarily, I don't believe it exists, particularly if you're working in big corporate, because being good at your job is a necessary but not sufficient condition to guarantee you will have employment. I've been retrenched, full disclosure, 3 times from 3 big organizations. It was never an issue about my performance. My performance reviews were all stellar, but you had some big brand boutique strategy firm, well, we'll remain nameless, come in and say, and I said to the finance folk, we need to go from X number of FTE to Y number of FTE. I've also sat in on those discussions. They don't look at, well, who's a 4-star, 5. It's just, okay, we need to get numbers down to these number of employees, this expenditure, and it's calculated.
I agree. I always say
Yeah,
you're not a name, you're a number. And I think
yeah,
that
very much so. Yeah.
especially in corporate, you're always
Yeah.
no
So
matter
there's
who you
no
are.
guaranteed you work hard, that your job is guaranteed, until someone wants to sell it off, spin it off, and some, big beastie firm comes in and says, okay, this is how we're going to transform reorg. Yeah, you're just a number. You're like bums on seats on a cheap airline. Like, yeah, and if you're in that seat, then you go, irrespective of how fantastic you are.
Yeah. So just on that, couple of last questions for you. Global, how do you juggle your own load? How do like you've got all these different time zones on the go. Like how do you ensure that you have that, I call it life work flow, so that,
Okay, great question, B. A couple of things. So one, I picked Australia, Canada, US by design. Those markets work very well from a time zone perspective. Singapore is only a couple hours behind. So that's one element. I strategically chose the markets that I chose. I'm also Canadian, and one of the reasons why I left corporate is I wanted to be able to work across my 2 homes. I consider myself to have to. I'm based here in Sydney. I will still always call Toronto home when I'm going to Toronto. My friends know I'm going home. Well, oh, right. You're going to your other home, Michael. How long are you going to Toronto for? Yeah. And so I chose these markets by design. So that's number one. Number two, you can be a sole on solo entrepreneur. You can work for yourself. But you cannot just work by yourself. I will be honest, it took me a good 3, 4 years into having my own business for that light to come on,
Mm.
but you can't do everything. And there's
No.
certain things I am not good at. So I have my right hand, Anna Delaney, Staircase Marketing, who is my marketing ops manager. So she is my go-to. She is the two I see in my company because I will create the content, I will write the white papers, and I will organize the roundtables. But in terms of doing the mastermind summary, which I just sent out, my CEO report, she puts those together, makes them look schmick, makes them look fantastic. She manages my email list, she does my social media, all of that stuff. So I would be lost if I didn't have Anna. Then I also have Shan up in Brisbane, who manages the website and the registration pages for the roundtable of the mastermind. So you have to have a team around you. These are not full-time people, but I have Anna on monthly retainer, and I keep her very busy. So you have to recognize that you cannot do everything. And then I'm also super organized as well. I am a very organized person. My business advisor, so yes, I'm a business advisor, but I have an advisor to keep me on my game with what I'm doing. And we have a ritual 15 forward. So end of every Friday, I spend 15, 20 minutes to recap the week. What are the kind of high priorities for the next week? And then I'll kind of flush it out again on Sunday. But I have that exercise as well, where I look 15 days ahead, 15 business days ahead, and I will see, okay, do I need to juggle in terms of time to work on client work? Okay, I have a meeting with X and Y. You know what? I need to keep the meeting with Anne, cancel the meeting with Nicole, and I will reevaluate based on priorities. So that revisiting and reprioritization keeps me in check so that I can still have work-life balance. This home office is always closed generally by 6 p.m. on a Friday. Computer comes off, lower the desk, and then it's time to have a life for the weekend, and it does not resurface again until Monday, 5 a.m. So I've also kind of put in some parameters for myself so that my weekends are my time to recharge. And generally, unless I have a late night meeting, once I come home from gym, I'll do some admin by 7:30. Computer is off. It's lower the desk, which means the office is closed. Close the door. See you tomorrow. So
Yeah, it's really good. You've got it going on. Like you have got that, I call it life work flow because
yeah,
we need the ability to have the time out. We need the ability to have that active recovery, to get that fresh perspective to then go again. Especially as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and I couldn't agree more on
yeah.
this.
Look, and it's not perfect. There are some Sundays I do
Yeah.
have to be Sunday afternoon. I do have to be working to do a few things to get ahead. It's not perfect, but one of the joys of working for yourself, I decide how and where I want to work. And so, I'm a massive athletics fan. When World Athletic Championships was on, and if I was doing work and it's 100-meter fall, take the laptop downstairs on the flat screen, and I can work. I don't have to ask for permission.
No.
So you can do those things. If I feel the fix that I need to go to Toronto, my other home, for a couple weeks, I can just pack up and go, book that ticket on Air Canada, go to Toronto, stay with my sister. I've got my co-working space. I love to work out in downtown, and I am working from my Toronto office, and I don't have to fill out the leave form. Boss, may I can just do it. Clients don't care where I dial in
No,
from.
exactly right.
And I'm very good with the time zones, and I always organize meetings around their time zones, and so it's great. So it's not perfect, but it for me and what I like to do, I enjoy it. And I can honestly say, Mondays and Fridays for me are no different. In big corporate, I'm sure you might have had that in your corporate life. Sunday afternoon, you start to get the angst, and you go Monday, it's like, oh, it's Monday. Then Wednesday is hump day. Ooh, 2 days till the weekend. Then Friday, you live the weekend. I'm not on that donkey wheel anymore. Mondays, Fridays are no different for me. So that in and of itself for me, it's like, yeah, this is not perfect. It's tough. There are some days you kind of rattle your head and like, do I want to go back to the dark side? But then I remember, yeah, but all the other things of having the flexibility, the
Yeah,
amazing
I
people I've
know.
been able to meet, like yourself, and I get to work on great projects, variety of projects. I have a pretty good network of international folk that it's not massive. I don't have tens and thousands, but there are people I can pick up the phone, I can send a WhatsApp to, respond, connect, and so it's great. So
I love
overall,
it.
I'm good. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
I love
perfect,
it.
but
It's
I'm
so
good.
good. Like listen, hearing all of this, it's great. I love all your rhythms, rituals, systems, the organization. I'm trying, I always ask my guest at the end of the show what would be one piece of advice. And I'm like, I'm a bit like, because you've just been throwing out so many amazing insights.
Oh, you learn a lot because it hasn't been perfect. I want your listeners to understand it has not been perfect.
No,
There's been a lot of stuff ups, stops, restarts. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone. You really have to have a very thick skin. So I've learned a lot. But the one thing I would say is it goes back to my previous comment. You can work for yourself, but you cannot work by yourself. You must have your team. You know what your zone of genius. You have to know those other elements for which you're not good at. You've got to
of your team.
you've got to have a team, because if you try to do it all, you do what I did the first 3 4 years. Anything I wasn't good at, I just swept it under and didn't do it, and then you end up building a broken business where things aren't moving and happening as they should because you haven't put all the things in place. I know I'm don't ask me anything about email lists, anything tech, but I got Anna and Shan who do their zone of genius and do what they need to do. Yes, it's a bit of an investment, but I also know they do amazing work. When I
Yeah,
send out my CEO report, people are like, I develop the content, but Anna makes it look like it's top notch to rival any of the likes of Bain, McKinsey, and any of those big four. My documents do look
I love it.
fantastic and they got quality.
Yeah.
So if I just had known that a bit earlier, as opposed to sweeping it under the rug, so that's my one bit of advice, that you have to have a team, your virtual team. I'm not saying it has to be massive. For me, it's really Anna, and then Shan helps on that team. But you've got to have those people because it makes all the difference.
And you can't grow. You can't grow when you're blocking the
You
business.
can't grow. The quality of your work is just not going to be as
No,
good. You're able to do more. You're able to take on more, and just being able to have. Because we have to be able to deliver at that quality, and the bar is high for us, particularly us in professional services. When we're trying to get those good clients, bigger clients, the bar is set very high. Our clients, our prospects are definitely willing to work with us because many have been burned by going to the big end of town. But you have to show your expertise, but they also have to be able to see it and feel it, like, oh, this is a report. No, this is a pretty schmick looking report too. It gets people to lean in and to want to have the conversation, continue the conversation. So you've got to kind of take those steps.
love it. Michael, how do we find out more about you? How do we find out more about Listen, Innovate, Grow?
So two places. One, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and always open and keen to connect with great people. And then secondly, go to the website listeninnovategrow.com. Again, listeninnovategrow.com, all one word. And that's a repository of articles, tools, templates, playbooks for all of us as SMEs in B2B professional services. How do you thrive and live in the world of B2B? And I try to make it all very action oriented, very practical, and very buyer driven, based on how our people that we're looking to serve actually think, buy, and operate.
Love it. What an incredible conversation, Michael. You got me all inspired. Like just
Oh,
listening
thank
to
you.
you
Thank
and
you.
just loving, like business, but also like, then how is you as an entrepreneur? How do you thrive? How do you thrive
Yeah,
in this? And yeah, I've really enjoyed our conversation. So
thank
thank
you.
you. I'm going to let you get back to your, well, it's nearly afternoon. Well, we're about to hit, it's mid-morning still, but
Yeah,
thank
mid morning. Yeah.
you. Yeah, thank you.
But thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
You too. Take care.
Thank you.